Girl, real talk. This whole "it's a new year, time to reinvent myself" trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
We are Sex Bob, and we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Underrated. We are the Undercast company. I am Alan Torres, and joining me as usual are my lovely co-hosts, Ariel Ortiz and Derick McDuff.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey everybody, thanks a lot for hanging out, and thank you guys for joining in. Today we're going to be talking about kind of a heavy, psychedelic, weird fucking drama. This was on my underrated kind of list for a long time, but I was always very mixed about it, because even when I first saw it, I was very mixed about it, but I really wanted to challenge myself and give it another watch. This one is 2009's Enter the Void by Gaspar Noé. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
Directed by him, written by him as well, and Lucille, I'm going to butcher this, Halilovic, I hope. Starring Paz de la Huerta and Nathaniel Brown. So what this film is about, real quick, it's pretty much a first-person psychedelic view of dying. Essentially, the main character, Nathaniel Brown's character, Oscar, he is killed by the police in the beginning of the film, and the whole film is him just kind of having an out-of-body experience. His spirit, ghost, whatever you want to soul, whatever you want to call it, is floating around Tokyo in Japan. I'm assuming Tokyo, Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like a what's the term? Your life flashing before your eyes before you die, kind of thing. And there's a lot of different meanings about the film. I kind of thought it was about death and reincarnation, because there's in the first couple minutes there's a lot about reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where it's about, when you die, you see these certain things, you see your memories of people you loved and everything, and then you're reincarnated. But when I was reading about it, Gaspar Noé had a whole different kind of thing about it, but I'll bring that up later. So yeah, that's kind of the quick little synopsis of the film. We're going to delve deeper into the really fucking wild, just psychedelic trip of a film it is, so I want to hear what you guys have to say about it.
I think the moral of the story is that don't be a literal mother ever.
Motherfucker,
Unless you want your mother to be your sister. That's the thing that I got from it.
Okay.
This is like a Russian nesting doll of Oedipus complexes.
Yeah, exactly. Oedipus complexes. I don't think so. He definitely had an Oedipus complex, and then they both had kind of like flowers in the basement kind of vibes.
Flowers in the attic.
Flowers in the attic. There you go. Opposite way. Of essentially, yeah. I think that he did end up being. It's kind of assumed. That's the thing too. Like I want to dive into of essentially how it is not exactly what the French friend's character explained, because I that's what I was like, and that's why I was like, oh, this movie's it's weird. It gets too much. It's
incredibly overstimulating.
Not really.
Shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Not even. Doesn't even warn you. Doesn't even warn you at the beginning that it's going to be. So I feel really bad. I'm really hoping that they put warnings somewhere, on the poster for epileptic people. I mean, because it just opens. It opens with bright flashing lights, and I was I couldn't do it. I was turned away.
Yeah.
Gaspar Noé is irreversible. It is iconic because of a fucking rape scene. So I think Gaspar Noé really doesn't give a shit. I think he was like, "Fuck it, you're in for this."
Yeah, shout out to, I did watch this on Canopy. They did have a little disclaimer when you selected the movie that says, like, beware of, like, flashing lights and stuff like that, and also weird-ass sex scenes.
Yeah, we're so the whole last minute, like, not even minute, it was like 10, 15 minutes?
10, 15 minutes.
15 minutes, yeah. It's like, it's just, like, too much. It's like, is this going to get to a point? And it doesn't get into a point because they don't, like, you know, when he enters his sister's womb, it's not even that first building. Like, you kind of thing. Like, I thought it was like, oh, is this the same one? It's like, no, it's a different place. I'm like, then why did you have to show that whole first place? Kind of thing. I guess it's like him searching. Now thinking about it,
it's because that's where
hotel, the glow.
Yes,
that's where the glows like he started to see the glows and stuff. It wasn't the first time he saw sex, or the first time he saw his sister having it. It's so weird how that we're having this conversation. But yeah, I guess that's like that was the meaning of it. Maybe that's like, okay, you're ready to jump in. And or come in.
Yep.
Oh man.
Nut in, come in.
That close up. Just
yeah.
the head. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it for its spirituality and its concept. The visuals are, I mean, the psychedelic visuals are pretty cool, pretty interesting. Like at the beginning, it starts off in the form of when he first like takes that drug at the beginning. It kind of starts off in the form of like EMT, right?
DMT.
He's always asking for it. But yeah, when he first takes that, it's like psychedelic shapes and stuff like that first, like, or naturally, like, which you kind of see, and I appreciated, like, in the form of like synapses and neurons, which was like a pretty cool thing to see, because that's like essentially what the drug is, you know, firing and doing. So I really liked and dug the visualness of those. I don't want like of the actual like psychedelic concept.
Yeah, you could be a little vague and be like, I like the psychedelic visual.
Yeah.
When they have like the organic patterns and stuff, kind of like
exactly.
That was cool.
And like, yeah, I really like the kind of, I mean, you get a sense of like why both him and his sister, who for a second I thought that his sister wasn't messed up, but then she like starts like trying to mac him like right when she sees him again in the airport, like after the airport. So I'm like, oh, okay, she's already messed up anyway, because I thought it was going to be like, oh, he messed her up, he started her on drugs, and like, no, she was already a freak, which is like, you understand at least why they're, you know, because of all the trauma that they had with their parents' death, especially, that they're all messed up in that way. I had, in the case of Oscar as a character, I was like equating it to like essentially, and then also at the beginning, like when it's like a drug bust and all that, I was essentially like connecting it to like the Safdie brothers, Good Time, and then also Uncut Gems, where it's like these characters that essentially write their own undoing in a way, and aren't the greatest people. Most of the time, to surround themselves with not the greatest people, manipulate. So I didn't really feel bad for Oscar. The one character that I mainly felt bad for in this movie was his French friend. Like, yeah, he's an addict and stuff like that, but I think he really did care for him. He really did care. I think he really did care for his sister. He kind of was gentle with her, and at like saying like, oh, you should keep an eye on her, like in kind of like a flirty way to Oscar. But then also I think he was like, no, you should, like, you know, she is beautiful, you should keep an eye on her, kind of thing too. And yeah, I kind of felt bad about him and how he like kind of got delved into this, because he wasn't the drug dealer and stuff like that. It was the other guy, the weird man pervert guy kind of thing.
Which one?
The dealer, the one that liked to apparently smear his crap on the guys that he would mess around with. Their heads, the back of their head. The dealer.
Yeah, the fucking bald guy who looks like Flea.
Yeah, exactly. So then like that too. I found it very interesting because he chose to assume set this before 2001 because in the supposed like vision of your future that you see based on like what the French friend said, you know, at the beginning of like of what you see, it cuts to like a New York borough, and in the background is the two towers. So so it's like I was like, oh, that's dating the movie, dating this time. Okay.
I thought it was more like maybe that was like a flashback to when he was younger, or like when he was
no, because that was his sister and his French friend. Because the guy had long hair. The dad had long hair. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll bring. Oh yeah, we'll go into that in a little bit. Yeah, because it's a little weird, but yeah. So Derick, I kind of saw a spoiler of on Letterboxd of how you felt, so I kind of curious to hear.
Yeah, well, you know, I think this is definitely a film that I'm very, very glad that I got to watch because the filmic language in this is really strong and interesting. It's doing a lot of things with this kind of like the way this camera, it's all from a POV, like at the first 30 minutes when you're like literally just looking at this guy's eyes and you're seeing like the blinks and everything. And then it becomes an out of body experience. And it's like for parts of it's like a third person, and then parts of it, this camera's floating around like a David Fincher movie. And it's doing all this really interesting stuff from like an editing and like shooting standpoint where the camera will just kind of be zooming around and he's just almost this omniscient figure where he can look at anything that's happening in the city or go back and forth in time. And I found all of that very, very cool and interesting. It did a lot of stuff where it's like commenting on the way our film language mirrors the way we tend to use our memory, and the way our memories are just kind of fragmented scenes like this, and the way that this film is doing the same thing, and the same way that film can mirror even like a drug trip, and then it becomes all that gets tied together in this out-of-body experience that is maybe death, but maybe it's just like, Alan, as you're kind of alluding to, actually a drug trip of somebody who had just heard about the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and it's not really happening, and all that is just really there in the way that the film is shot. And getting to look at it was really cool. I do like that style of filmmaking a lot. I think for me, though, it's just when it gets to be so experimental that you are just kind of getting taken out of the film at certain points. You're a little bored at points because it's just like that, like that last scene where it's just like looking at like, here's another couple having sex. Here's another couple having sex. Here's another. It was a little much for me. You can tell that this movie is clearly inspired by 2001: A Space Odyssey, specifically that last Star Child sequence. There's a lot of stuff that is like, wow, Gaspar Noé saw that shit and ran with it. And while that's a 5-star movie for me, I love that movie. What I like about that movie is that is all contained to the end, and up till that point, the first like 3/4 of the movie are very formalistic. There's weird stuff happening, but it's shot like a normal movie. The plot progresses normally, and then it gets weird and trippy and stuff at the end. So I think I did really like that first 30 minutes, and I liked a lot of it. It was just probably too much for me. I also did watch the original cut, the one that played at Cannes, rather than the cut down version, which went from like 160 minutes to I think about 120 minutes, so from about 2.5 hours down to a clean 2.
I think no, actually, I think I saw the original. I think it's like 2 hours and 40 minutes, almost 3 hours, and then I actually watched the cut down version, and it's 2 hours and 23 minutes.
Okay.
So yeah, it's about like 20 minutes cut. Yeah.
Okay. And maybe I would have liked it a little bit more if I'd seen the cut version, but it's definitely one of those movies that I can appreciate. I'm glad I finally got to see a Gaspar Noé movie because I know he is really big among people who like experimental film and that kind of thing. And so it's something that I definitely needed to experience. If you are a big fan of film, like this is really an experience movie where I think you should just like watch it. Interestingly enough, I almost watched this movie when I was high, but I don't really get high that often. I'm not really a big drug guy, but my roommate happened to have like half a cookie, and when I was planning to watch this, and she's like, "You want half?" And I was like, "Sure." And we were hanging out, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I should watch this because I was gonna watch it tonight, and then we were like, no, let's watch something lighter. So I'm really glad because I did not know all the intense stuff. This would have been not necessarily a fun watch with my roommate. So I'm glad I kind of just like watched this alone and experienced all the weirdness. Had a much more fun time watching a different drug movie last night, Pineapple Express. Very, very different drug movie. But yeah, I'm glad that I got to kind of watch this movie and just have this very unique experience. I also wanted to say that some of the actors in this, despite a lot of the people in this movie not being professional actors, a lot of them are pretty good, particularly the guy who plays the French friend, Alex Roy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's never been in anything before. And then the main actress, she is actually an actress, Paz de la Horta.
Yeah.
She was really good. Can't necessarily say the same thing about Nathaniel Brown. He's a director more than an actor, but he just had the back of his head, so it wasn't too much of a problem. But yeah, overall, glad I checked it off the list.
Speaking of just hearing essentially his voice mainly, I don't know, Alan, if you got the sense of like, I was like, there were moments where I was like, that sounds like Greg Sestero. Like, he sounds like Greg Sestero at parts, and I was just
yeah.
Yeah, and I was just like, it makes sense. It would make sense.
I don't know. Delivery. Yeah,
but like, yeah, because especially like seeing like Best Friends and what Mystery Mystery Valley, something like that. That's his movie. But I was like, yeah, that's like he's kind of like a Greg Sestero kind of character of it, especially his character in The Room. And how stupid he is. no, how like messed up he screws people over. But yeah, like I think like maybe there were times where I was like, okay, this is like get on with it a little bit. But I think I like when movies are like start off weird and continue on weird instead of like abruptly changing and becoming weird. I think that for me kind of takes me out of a movie. So I was like, at least like at the beginning, especially with the flashing lights, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be it. This is gonna be weird.
Those credits were, by the way, so fucking fire. I was watching.
One
and
of the best opening credits.
I was honestly thinking like, this is the best credits I've seen since fucking Scott Pilgrim, which I think came out around the same time. Like this came out in theaters in 2010. It was in Cannes in 2009. But so yeah, about the same time.
Yeah. I have a fear of epilepsy, so I'm okay. I'm like, I don't want to chance that. But I really did, like, right when it's open, and like me being, I watch gameplay more so than play. So for me, when it opened and it was that first person kind of thing, I was like, oh, this would be an awesome, like, just like, I'm sure there are. I mean, I think it is called like first person RPG, and like especially with the voiceover and stuff like that, I was like, this is just like first person RPG. Like especially like his dialogue of like going like pick up this. It's like okay, go and pick up this. Okay, splash your face with water. It's like the opening of a video game, like learning the controls. Like once he says like, oh, pick up this. Right bumper to pick up this, or or splash water, like press left bumper to splash water on your face. So I was really into it because of that. I was just like, okay, because I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Yeah, it was just a very interesting movie. The one thing that I was like, I almost like threw my hands up in the air for was because essentially does like a loop, you could say, back to his death. Essentially, and then it for a second looked like it was going to loop again and essentially start from the start of the story and then like come back around. Again, go back in time completely and then like go linear again. So when because it shows that white screen that also flashes again. again, and I was like, "Are we going back to the beginning again? Are we looping 3 times and stuff like that?" But no, we ended up not. We ended up continuing on linearly. So I was like, okay. Right.
We ended up getting nutted on our face.
Right.
Inside
I was like, right. Just like I was like, how did I stumble on this tab in Pornhub? Like the fucking sister fucking like out of I was like, this is a very specific weird kink that Gaspar Noé has, I guess. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, no, it was like when I first heard about it, I like to challenge myself with like experimental films just because I want to see how far my limit goes. As somebody who grew up with the internet being unmonitored, I at 12 years old, I saw things I should not have seen at all. So I was
That's
like,
why you're messed up.
Yeah, and to this day, I still, our old co-host Fred, me and him both kind of just ran into shit we shouldn't have, and we still to this day push ourselves to be like, this is kind of fucked up. All right, let me see it.
Yeah.
Like we have to just be like, and then you kind of just get out of it, and you're like, why did I do that? All right, let me see it again. And that's kind of how I felt with this. Where like the first time I saw it, I was like, funny enough, I saw the longer version, and it took me 2 nights to finish it just because like it was fucking slow. This time around, seeing the shorter cut, it was a much better experience, and it had a better pace. I noticed that immediately, where I was like, oh my god, yes. Because when before going into it, my biggest anxiety about it was I was like, it's fucking slow. I think I even texted you guys, hey, it's fucking 3 hours long. It's fucking slow. But
yeah, me too. I thought I was like kind of getting worried about that, and maybe it is. Yeah, it's just short by 20 minutes. Is that what you're saying? That it was?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it makes a really good difference then because there were moments of slowness, but not as much as like Derick, you were saying, of like just complete lulling. I think for me, most part, I like had to pause because of just kind of like I get a cringe kind of feel when it's like those kind of movies of like this person's just making so many bad mistakes. So in that kind of first roundabout, where telling you his past leading up to him getting shot, and him just making horrible decisions with like no remorse. That's that's the type of like character that gives me cringe. So I had to pause for that moment. But I think for me, like I said, like the visual wonkiness, I think that's what just kind of kept me in, and then that's why like I very much skipped over the whole like love hotel part, because I'm like, there's nothing like psychedelic in this part that could like kind of
that was the most psychedelic part about the whole
shooting
film.
Laser beams out of their dicks in that part.
Yeah.
But you see one space beam out of a dick, it's more so I think the space beams are in the womb. But anyway,
no, there was like the whole scene. It was like, I don't know, maybe that was the scene that was cut, because it kept going on and on. You're like, here's another couple. Here's another couple.
It did. No, it kept going. But anything, the conjunction is lit up. But then it's like, okay, I've seen 2 conjunctions essentially, and of like whispering willows of light. Let me just and we're getting closer to recording, so I'm like, let me just get through this. Let me just skip through this.
Yeah. I'll be honest. The first half hour, the opening credits, and the last 15 minutes are probably my favorite parts of the whole film. Just because, the whole film is. I grew more appreciation now seeing it a second time because I knew what to expect. And I was able to take in all the psychedelicness of it, because I love like psychedelic stuff. I love psychedelic music. That's one of my favorite genres, especially with like EDM or I'm a big Queens of the Stone Age fan. So I need it to be just so overstimulating. Is one of my big things. So this time around, kind of knowing that it's a heavy film, and being able to just take it in, I was like, okay, I actually liked it better this time around. The first time, it was like just horribly slow. Like I said, it took me 2 nights to finish it, and it wasn't because it was heavy. I just was falling asleep. Like I was like, all right, I'm tired. I'm just gonna knock out, and I finished it the next night. But yeah, this is definitely a movie where I wasn't like drawn by the story.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I wanted
What
to
story?
experience it. Exactly. Like I was like, this is a movie you experience kind of thing. And I like how you put it earlier, Derek, that it is something I suggest to people to watch as an experience. I don't necessarily think you should watch it high as fuck because I was thinking about doing it this time around, but I was kind of busy. Like I was kind of doing a lot of shit while I was watching it. And I'm really glad I didn't because I realized, holy shit, just watching this sober, I was like, damn, this is a lot. This was more than I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, yeah, that's the thought I had. I was like, man, it was a lot for me to watch like a simple comedy last night where people are like, having trouble being high. I could not have been able to handle this in an altered state. Because
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, what were you gonna say, Ariel?
I think that's for me the most part because my expectation was like I'm not gonna get this movie at all. So I was like at least happy in that point. Or I don't know, maybe I didn't get it according to what Alan has to say about what the writer director says. I thought I was like, oh, okay, it's about this whole idea of reincarnation. So I when in the moment thinking that, I was like appreciative, like I'm getting it kind of thing, which is like with these kind of movies, like most of the time don't get it kind of thing. So yeah.
Well, yeah,
No,
Alan, you go
sorry,
off
go
on
ahead.
that.
No, go ahead, Derek.
No. I was just gonna throw it to you. I wanted because we kind of talked about Noé's like he's the director. He's the one who has this, but I don't know. I'm always interested by that quote unquote death of the author thing where there's something that comes out and you're like, oh, cool, I can interpret it this way, I can interpret it this way. I think, like, Ariel, you're like, I think this is a movie about reincarnation. And I do kind of believe that, like, your interpretation of this is just as valid as what Gaspar Noé has to say in something that is a collaborative medium like film. I don't think someone can just say, well, you know what, you watched that wrong. Your interpretation, it's not right. I made the movie, I would know. I'm like, there's nothing in the text that like definitively says that. This is a movie that you could watch and interpret a number of different ways, and I always appreciate that. And I'm always just kind of like, you know what? Just because you're the director doesn't mean that you can necessarily tell me, nope, this is wrong. You're wrong for thinking that. I made it like this. But I'm like, yeah, but somebody else shot this, somebody else acted in this, somebody else did, in this case it's the same writer-director, but a lot of times it's a different writer. So I'm always kind of like that death of the author thing. I'm always kind of like more on the side of like it's open to interpretation. But Alan, why don't you talk a little bit more about the Gaspar Noé was saying about it?
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you, Derek. I kind of sometimes like when something is just completely canonized by the writer director, but there are situations like you said where it's nice to be open to interpretation. Like if it's like something very straightforward where it's like, hey, that guy got shot right in the face, and like Scream, like everyone right now in the Scream fandom for some reason really wants Stu Macher from the first Scream to come back to life, and I was like, no, a TV fell on his face, he's fucking dead, stop. And I don't think they've ever confirmed that. I mean, rest in peace Wes Craven. He can't be here to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure Kevin Williamson, the writer, will one day be like, no, he's fucking dead, dude. Because I was like, it fell on his fucking face, there's no way he's gonna come back. But segueing to Jasper, no, is it Jasper? Gaspar?
Yeah, that's Gaspar.
Gaspar Noé. Okay,
yeah.
I didn't want to like butcher it, but his thing is like he was saying that he's like very, he's like, I don't believe in anything, I'm not religious or anything like that. He's like this, and I had the same interpretation as Ariel. I was like, oh, reincarnation, because that was the whole setup in the first half hour.
Yeah, like an outline, literally like an outline,
Yeah, that's exactly what I took away from it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you go, okay, you're setting it up. There's the literal payoff, like in my face, and he's like, no, you're wrong. It's actually a dude got way too fucking high, and he was super stoned, and when he got shot, he had a dream, and all of this is kind of a dream that's going on, and then he dies, kind of thing. And then he even kind of says that, I'm paraphrasing a lot, but essentially he says that, like, at one point he kind of thinks that it's also a loop, where he's like, it's actually not his sister, it's his mom. Oscar's
Oh,
mom.
because that's why it kind of cuts at the end. I think it cuts. It does it cut to his mom's face and then her
Yeah,
face.
but it's very
his
hard
mom
to
like
see.
giving birth. Yeah,
Hmm.
Well, we don't know
to
if it's
him.
his mom giving birth. It just
You do
shows
see her. You do see
Oh,
her. Like,
Yeah, you see
yeah.
her.
Oh.
There's parts where like when it's his dad and his mom are like fucking or whatever, and then
Yeah, you see
it
that
changes to
part.
his sister and Alex, and then it kind of goes, and then because like when the when the camera closes up on that nipple, it's kind of hard to see the mom's face because
Yeah.
it's like kind of faded almost, but from what he says, it's like, yeah, that's his mom, and then it's kind of like this loop where it's like, oh, because this whole thing was he's saying this whole movie is his traumas, and the most traumatic event, it leads up to the most traumatic event in his life is at his own birth. And I was like, I get what you're saying because, oh my God, I wasn't asked for this, and da-da-da-da. But I was still like, I mean, you set it up. You set it up for reincarnation. That's how I felt it. I even watching it, I was like, oh, it's gonna set up that whole thing, whatever.
Yeah,
and then I was like doing some reading afterwards. But yeah.
Yeah, it's that notion, which yes, I know, like, but that notion has just been around for so long too. It's just like you said, like, oh, he grabbed this from this and this. It's like just adding more, like, less originality than I had thought that this was, kind of, if he is interpreting it like that, because that whole notion of like, yeah, the most traumatic thing that ever happened to you is that was at your birth and born. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting, but I was kind of like a bit of a letdown. It could still
be like a rebirth, renewal, because you have like that fading out. That's another way you could interpret it. Our way of thinking, it was like the fading out of the old life into the new life kind of thing, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this movie, like we touched on, is definitely one of those vibes movies where you're not watching it for the plot. You're definitely not really watching it for the characters. You're watching it to just kind of be in this world and to feel things. Like, you're not watching this character have an arc and learn a lesson and be like, all right, well, that was the ultimate moral of this story. It's more like just living with the vibes of it and just being like, when I don't know if you guys have the same feeling, but like when I was watching this, it just made me feel so existential and just like empty and like I just kept thinking of fucking Scott Pilgrim, where it's just like, we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff. I was like, that's this fucking entire movie. Just
not a race, guys.
Yeah. Am I the only one that thinks that the narc friend essentially did it because he got jealous, right? He got jealous of his mom, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because he wanted Oscar, right?
Yeah, because Oscar, like, very in the beginning, that I caught it this time. I remember the last time I watched it, he said something about a blowjob, and then in the psychedelic orgy love hotel scene, he's sucking a couple guys' dick in the elevator. Oh, I thought that was more of like a dig, but then hearing it this time around, he's like, yeah, he just wants to suck my dick or something like that. That's disgusting. And then I was like, and then watching the.
Was he saying that about the narc guy, or was he saying it about
Victor.
the? Oh, I thought he was saying it about the drug dealer.
Oh no, I think he was saying about Victor, because I thought that was the payoff. Okay. That in the dream psychedelic love hotel sequence, that's why he's blowing those guys in the elevator. Because the first time that's what I thought, and then this time it kind of confirmed it. Again, though, you're kind of more. I don't know, sometimes the blinking in that opening scene, kind of like, you kind of have to get used to the blinking because you're seeing somebody else blink. So I remember both times I was like, listeners, you can't see it, but I'm like blinking, like I'm forced to blink. It's kind of one of those things where it's like,
it just made me think about my own blinking
like
so much.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you see somebody yawn and you yawn.
Yeah.
Like
you got and just like you were saying, Ariel, with first person game thing, because it reminded me of a Resident Evil 7, biohazard, because that one is first person. It's not, third person or tank controls. So even in that game, I think there's instances where you start you see his hands and he's putting like ointment on it, spoilers, he gets his hand cut off and you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
And it's like right in your face, but yeah. But it's definitely, the whole time I was watching, I was like, this is like definitely a midnight movie. Like I would, I definitely would like to watch it in theaters. Like Not immediately, because I
But
think
not, don't go in tired, like, because you do kind of want alertness. You know, that's why.
Yeah.
But you don't want. That's the thing. Like going back to you guys saying like you didn't want to watch this like under the influence and stuff like that. Like you want alertness while watching this movie, but you don't want to be over alert kind of thing. So yeah,
because it's a lot. Like I think I'm trying to think of a movie I saw like faded as fuck that was like stimulating, and it was nowhere near as like this. I think it might just be an anime intro that's like flashy and like Demon Slayer or some shit. They were really cool, and like watching that high, I'm like, whoa, okay, that's a lot. I'm glad it's just minute 30 seconds. Almost 3 fucking hours of this is like, oh my god, it's too much. Like especially high.
Yeah, and but it does keep your attention. It's not something like Skinamarink or something where you just kind of like you are just kind of watching things, but at least things are like happening in this movie.
Yeah. My brother kind of started to fall asleep during that one. He said until like it's his story to tell, but he kind of like had like a kind of heightened watching of that one because while he was kind of like falling asleep, the movie kind of melded into his like subconscious itself. And
that's what I hear. Like, I still haven't seen it, which I'm kicking myself in the ass about.
Yeah,
I've been wanting to watch it, but
they showed that at like. They showed those at like 10 o'clock showings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at a wall for an hour and a half, Alan. You'll get the experience.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It sounds creepy.
That's kind of one of the. It sounds creepy. Like the trailers are great, and that's the one thing is like because I go on Letterboxd and then I hear 2 things. It's always 2 things. Like Derick said, just turn off the lights and hang out there for an hour and a half, or stare at a wall, or oh my god, this is one of the scariest fucking things. I feel like I'm seeing things in real life. Like it's very immersive.
You have to be like semi sleepy for that one. So
I definitely fell asleep the first time I saw it.
Yeah, but you kind of like you have to be like trying to pay attention, but you're very tired apparently, according to my brother, because then you'll like the movie and your subconscious half sleep state will meld together. So
yeah, no, I'm glad to hear what you guys had to say about it. It's been one of those movies that's been on my mind since we started this podcast. And again, like I said, I was like, do I want to challenge myself to watch that again? Because it's a lot, it can be slow. But you know what? This time around, it was a lot easier to watch and it was a lot easier to take in. So I'm happy to hear that you guys kind of enjoyed it, at least the vibes of it all, the experience. Because like I said, it's not a movie you sit down for the story or for the character arcs, like Derick's saying. It's an experience. Just like, I think on one of our older podcasts we had a guest and we brought up Antichrist. That movie is not about the story. That movie is just fucking visceral and dark and heavy, and it's just no fun, but you watch it because it's an experience. And it's not even like I don't even know if I would consider it a horror movie. It's just a heavy experimental film. But yeah, pretty much, yeah. Well, I wanted to ask, since we always kind of do these now, what is the type of experimental film that you guys have seen that you would recommend to everybody? Or you feel like you saw it and you're like, oh shit, you know what? I would recommend this one, or I would never watch this shit again. Like that one time was good enough.
Well, the one one that popped in my head that I like don't really want to watch. I was just kind of thinking while you were like explaining the concept. Ichi the Killer. I like.
Oh my god, Ichi the Killer is a fucking shit, dude. I'll watch that shit again and again. No, that was fucking wild.
No, that vibe is like not my vibe. Like
again,
the whole body horror and all
that's
that.
That's fucking Fred and I. Fred and I were like, holy shit, it's one of the goriest films of all time. Let's watch it. And we sat and watched it and we're like, damn, that shit was fucked up. Okay, you thought the opening credits of this film was fucking awesome. Ichi the Killer, coincidentally, both have nut. Ichi the Killer's opening title, like it shows Ichi the Killer is him nutting, and his cum falls on like a leaf, and it spells the title of the film.
Oh my god,
Ariel, I'm fucking shocked you saw that. I thought you were the last person I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it. That's what I'm saying. I'll never watch it. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it.
Oh my god.
No. I didn't watch it. I was saying that's a movie that that I see it. I know it's not the vibe for me. I'm not gonna watch it. I didn't watch it. No.
Okay. I thought you
yeah.
Dude,
No,
I
no,
was
no.
like, Ariel Sledge to the killer? Holy shit.
No. I was
Yeah.
like thinking of like maybe I should, because I know it's like a classic and all that. I'm like,
Oh.
but then like
It's a
I was like,
classic in the
I
sense
can't,
of like
no.
I like to see fucked up shit.
Yeah.
Like that's like me and Fred's classics where we're like, yeah, let's see like fucking intense shit.
Well, I thought
But-
at least like it's so because it's a cult, like one of the cult classics that they like they have a series at the Frida, and it had come up.
Yeah, I wanted to see
Well,
it.
if there's an actual like story, maybe. But then I saw like they show like a trailer and stuff. I was like, no, there's no story here. Okay, it's just body horror. There's a story, but it's not like kind of thing.
It's an experience. That's actually
yeah.
a really good one. Yeah, it's an experience.
Yeah.
Midnight movie for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Derek.
Yeah.
Derek, yours.
So I mean, I tend to like films that are inspired by experimental, but like have experimental elements, but aren't fully experimental. I tend not to like stuff that just like goes too overboard, where you're like, what is even this about? So like I've mentioned, before, a lot of times, like I like The Green Knight. Feel like that one gets it just enough weirdness, but it's still a coherent story, but it has those non-formalistic elements in it. I really like I'm Thinking of Ending Things. That's probably one of my favorite experimental films. I like a lot of the experimental stuff that Michel Gondry does, and especially when they mix it, like I said, with the more traditional filmmaking, and then you have those experimental weird shit creep in. Like Eternal Sunshine is one of my all-time favorite movies, and as Gondry has gone on to direct more of his films rather than just being a writer, his stuff has gotten weirder and weirder and more interesting. So yeah, I mean, definitely. And there's some animated stuff that I think does some really experimental stuff, interesting. A lot of like anime that's just kind of bizarre and off the wall. Stuff like we've covered, like I think even Thief and the Cobbler. It's not animated, but Sunshine was another one that got experimental towards the end. Interstellar. These were all obviously inspired by 2001, so they do have those kind of trippy elements that are kind of grandfathered in through that. So I think, those are a lot of my favorites for sure. But definitely go watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things. That's top of the list.
Okay, real fast. Is that movie about suicide?
No, but maybe. It's one of those, like, I don't think so, but you could definitely read it that way.
Okay, because I don't know anything about it. I just heard the title, and I immediately was like, is someone going to kill themselves? Because that sounds very...
It's about the title's in reference to a breakup.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because, like, I keep hearing how good it is, but no one says what it's about. They're just like, bro, you gotta watch it, going, not knowing anything about it. But I'm like, is it gonna be like a weird, heavy drama about suicide? Because it's kind of weird.
It is weird as shit. Like,
okay, cool.
But like Jesse Plemons and Jesse Buckley, double Jessies, they're both so good in it.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about ending that one. Yeah.
It's one of those movies I made my mom watch, and she's like, "So what was happening?"
So I think movie wise, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one that we discussed on here. I guess you could say it's a vibe, like Monkey Bone and stuff like that. But that's like going off Alan. That's a childhood one. One that like I just want to like throw out a show that like is interesting concept of a show, and I really freaking loved the show itself. I think it might go down as like one of my favorite shows of all times. That I just recently saw on Netflix was the Japanese show Alice in Borderlands.
Oh, I wanted to watch that.
It's just this concept, and I don't want to give the ending away.
No, don't, please, yeah.
But no, I'm not going to. But how it ends, I was just like, this show that is brilliance. It is brilliant. Yeah, I ended up loving that show so much. It ended so incredible. Like, it's based on a manga. I guess they followed the manga pretty closely. except for one aspect at the end. But yeah, it is such an incredible it's such an incredible payoff of a show at the end. And definitely a kind of high it starts off kind of the first season, it's 2 seasons. The first season has a weirdness to it, but then the second season just builds on that situation, and the ending just kind of makes it, oh, this is like a whole concept kind of show. So it's really good.
Yeah. But before we get to you, Alan, I just wanted to, you reminded me real fast, Ariel, with Monkey Bone. I just want to shout out just like Henry Selick in general. He's one of my favorite filmmakers at making weird existential, experimental, almost animated stuff. And I also just want to throw out Wendell and Wild, James the Giant Peach, and especially Coraline is some really great ones.
I remember
Alan,
James and the Giant
But
Peach.
he do Coraline?
Yes, he did. Everyone thinks it's Tim Burton because they were like, from the director.
No, just that it's Leica. So that's
it was their first film, and
okay. So he like directing,
yeah.
Same with the Nightmare Before Christmas. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a Tim Burton movie." I mean, he produced it, but it was
exactly Henry Selick. Yeah,
it always bugs the fuck out of me. I really don't like that. It really kind of grinds my.
Me too.
But oh man, I don't know. I'm trying to think, because Enter the Void was one, and then a big shocker that Ariel brought up with Itch of the Killer. I guess of Extreme. I saw it when I was 12, and I brought it up multiple times. It is kind of weird, and it's intense and graphic, and sometimes at the end of the movie, you I don't know what the fuck is happening. Is again one I bring up, like I said all the time, is End of Evangelion. The fucking trailer, the teaser for that film is just screaming for 30 seconds, and it's just horrifying. And again, it was another one that me and Fred saw where we're like, oh, I should not have seen it when I was like 11, 12 years old because it fucked me up. But now I'm like, okay, I kind of want to watch it again, even though it's still a movie that I'm afraid to watch again because it was just a lot. But I guess animated wise, I would say that one. Maybe some people might not think it's experimental, but it's. I wouldn't even call it a vibe. It's shit just happening, and it's just nothing happy's happening at all.
One in that vein, because you mentioned Henry Selick and all those types of movies and like Leica and all that, kind of spurred me on to one movie that I think would fall into it, and I do kind of think we should cover it eventually. Is 9. 9 is a really good
the one with like the sock puppet kind of
yeah. Okay. Very high concept of like kind of like life and stuff like that, even too.
I would be interested to revisit that one.
I remember I did see that one on September 9th, 2009. I think we just got out of school and we're like, had nothing to do, and we're like, fuck it. I don't remember much of it, but I remember I was like, yeah, it was kind of cool.
Nice. And this, I will say, like this is kind of reminding me of all these experimental films, and this one, Enter the Void in particular, talk about. They're kind of this subgenre of movie, and there's this great letterbox list that I love looking at called "Lonely People in Neon Cities," where it's just like somebody wandering around this really cool, bright neon cities, stuff like this, or like Drive or Blade Runner 2049.
Hell yeah, dude!
I love that.
Kavinsky.
Yes, I love you know what I mean. I love that kind of vibe in a movie where it's somebody just wandering around. There's neon lights, and it's just like or In the Mood for Love is another really good one for that list. So I always love that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, same here. I'm a big fan of. I love like Outrun and like synthwave music, like that reminds you of like neon lights, city pop, like Japanese city pop, future funk. That music is one of my favorite genres, and I think about that shit all the time. Just driving lonely in a city, neon lights, just like that's why I fell in love with Drive. I know people are like, he's just like me for real. But I'm like, no, I actually fell in love with it because I just love the vibe of that movie, especially with Kavinsky's Night Call playing at the very beginning. Drew me in within seconds. I was like, oh, I already like this movie. I already loved it. But yeah,
absolutely.
But he is just like me, for real, for real.
You've got the scorpion jacket,
I still want to buy that fucking jacket.
right? One of these Halloweens, I'm gonna have to do it.
I did see one Halloween. This one guy, it was over in Old Town Orange. Nobody knew who he was. He like splattered blood on his face. He had a hammer, but he had like a jean jacket on, and he did his hair like him. And it's one of the few scenes where he's not wearing the scorpion jacket.
Mm.
And I was at the bar, and I was waiting for my drink, and he ordered a drink, and I looked at him, and I was like, "Are you Driver from Drive?" And he's like, "Dude, you're the only fucking person all night that knew who the fuck I was. Everybody thought I was just some fucking serial killer." and I was like, "I'm a bit real. It's because you need the scorpion jacket." He's like, "I know, but it's fucking $500. And I was just like, "I get you though," but I was like, "I hope that made your night." He's like, "It did. I appreciate it. Nobody knows who the fuck I am." But yeah,
Nice, very nice.
But anyways, yeah. Any announcements you guys want to make, or anything? Shameless plugs.
I don't think I have anything coming up. I have been taking it a little bit easier with all the guest spots, but definitely check out some of the past ones I did with Real Chums. I'm always on Can I Say Something with my buddy Damien, so check out that show, and then obviously check out our Patreon, Undercast Company, and we're gonna have always some exclusive stuff for the patrons over there for as little as $1.
As always, I host a podcast called You've Never Seen. Comes out at the beginning of each month. This past month one, newer one will also be coming out too, but at least in present times, recently I started up a new series with my brother, where I introduce him to movies of my childhood that have stuck around with me and are some of my favorites. So we discussed another kind of high concept a bit at the time, I would say, of Page Master with Macaulay Culkin in the 1990s movie.
That movie scared the shit out of me. As a kid, my cousin, one of my cousins would religiously watch that movie, and I'm pretty sure it was the horror section scene.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah,
Jekyll.
I fucking.
You should have had me. I've never seen it either, Ariel. So
really?
I'm kind of doing a special series with my brother.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But yeah. So that's the newest one, at least currently. Then we're gonna be following up with other ones. So check out at the first of each month for that.
And definitely check us out on all the socials, Undercast Company, everywhere. Give us 5 stars if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes. Give us a like if you're watching on YouTube. And give us a follow on Instagram, Undercast Company, Undercast Co. on Twitter. All the places. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being amazing, everybody.
Yeah, take it easy.
Thank you so much, everyone, and take it easy. Have a good one.